It's the Adam Gold Show. What? It's the Adam Gold Show. I don't know what I was just saying.
I thought you were laughing at this pep song.
No.
Because Bill Belichick came in like a wrecking ball.
I guess.
For the football program.
I guess. So I listened to Life of a Showgirl this weekend.
Oh, did you?
I did. I listened to it. It's good.
Okay.
I don't think it's amazing. I think it's good. And then somebody asked me for a full breakdown and review on the show today. I'm not going to do it now. If we have time later,
right.
Maybe. It's more mellow
That's
than
what I've heard.
Many other
of
Taylor Swift's albums. But again, I think it's good. I don't know if my friend Bryn Renner, Tarheel legendary quarterback, and now part of the radio broadcast crew, I don't know if he considers himself a Swiftie or not, or has even listened to Life of a Showgirl. We could talk about the album, or we could talk about what we saw on Saturday. Do you have a preference?
Well, I'll start with Wrecking Ball. I got really, I mean, that was a great intro by you guys, and then it started there. Then I was thinking about I should have just listened to the whole album on repeat instead of going to the game on Saturday.
I mean, I think Life of Showgirl's good. It's a little melancholy, a little slow, which maybe, I don't know, was appropriate. I texted you I waited till after the game to reach out to you, Bryn. Actually, I think I reached out to you Sunday morning. It was Sunday morning. Because I was listening to the game, the first half of the game on the radio. And you hit it well. But because I know you, I could feel your pain and frustration. So I'll just leave the floor open for you. What were your thoughts as the first half was unfolding?
Yeah, Adam, and you know, I think this comes from a player standpoint, a guy who started 40 games and a guy who's coached football for 5 years with Butch, right? And so I've seen a lot of football in Keenan and been a part of staffs. And I know how hard it is to win in college football, especially with the landscape today. You have more adversity as far as a coaching standpoint and more volatility of who's on your team, who's leaving. Can we get our own guys to stay? And honestly, Adam, that's kind of why I got out of coaching. It was really hard to retain talent and get players to stay for 4 years. And so I know what our staff is up against and how hard they're working to change it. I think my frustration is not seeing the improvement. And that goes from top to bottom and the players included. I think if you look at college football nowadays, it depends on the players you have in that locker room and getting better players in there. So I'm going to talk to the players right now and just say, hey, look, someone's got to take accountability for the scoreboard and the effort level and the competitiveness. And that interlocking NC means a lot to a lot of different people. And I think, as a fan, it's really tough to watch for 4 quarters and just be non-competitive, and that's got to change. So I think there's a lot of frustration, rightfully so, and I think I'm optimistic that it's going to turn around, but I think just it's gotta change, and you got to see some improvements, and it's got to start with the players, and then the coaches schematically have to improve, and I think it'll happen, and I don't want to. I've calmed down a little bit since Saturday, Adam, and I'm like I was at a 10, and then I went to a 6, and now I'm got a 4.
All right, good.
So I think that's a 4. That's a 4 answer.
There you go. Bryn Renner is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Here, the one thing I think it's fair to point out. And in some ways, it might be unfair because that was Clemson, a team that many people thought at the beginning of the year was going to compete for a national championship. So in a lot of ways, it's unfair to judge UNC based on that. And we should have expected that. I actually didn't think it would be that bad because I had no faith in Clemson's offense. But they showed a level of competence they had not shown throughout the season. They also pulled out, went into the bag of tricks, maybe to make it a little bit easier. But once they got going and got confidence, it just looked like they could do whatever they wanted. But again, their level of talent is different than North Carolina's level of talent. And I'm just wondering, as a player, can you see a difference? That how big is the difference as somebody who played 40 starts at UNC? Can you see the level of difference in the talent between Clemson and UNC? Is that what maybe the number one difference was on Saturday?
Yes and no, Adam. I think I've played teams that were probably more talented on paper, and then you show up and you go for the first snap, and you're saying the defensive tackle was a first-round draft pick, and Daquan Bowers, we played at at Clemson. I remember going to Clemson when they had Sammy Watkins, Taj Boyd, and all those guys in 2011, and that was an unbelievable team. I mean, I think they had like 7 guys that went in the first 2 days of the draft, and they were studs. And we went up 28-7 because I think there's a different level between talent and like the effort just to compete and fight, scratch and claw, no matter what that takes. And we always didn't have the most talented teams, but we for 4 quarters were going to compete. And I think that's what just is probably the unfortunate thing that we're not seeing on Saturdays is it's almost that we're not even in the game. And I think that's what the frustrating thing is. And I think, it does start with, your film preparation during the week. And yeah, there's some talent on film that you're like, wow, that guy can really play, but it's 1 or 2 guys. And you have a full unit that kind of takes that on as a challenge and say, well, if I ever want to get to the next level and I ever want to challenge myself, well, this is probably a good game where I need to bring my best. And so I think there, as a competitor and as a football player, you get up for those games. And I think having a week off to prepare, having a lot of things and getting, some guys healthy and back and you just didn't see it Saturday. And I think, yeah, is Clemson really, really talented? Yeah. But, Georgia Tech beat them and Troy was competitive with them. They played 4 competitive games this year and from other opponents that I would say, are equal to talent that we brought in. So I think it's more of, okay, are we going to use the talent issue or are we going to use what crutch are we going to use? And at some point, you've got to just go play the game and not make excuses for the lack of performance.
Bryn Renner is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. The communication, the way the coaching staff deals with the players, and Bill doesn't go over and talk to the players a lot during the game. It's very professional. Like, Bill didn't have to go and scream at his offensive line. Like, when it got really bad, he might, but he didn't have to do that. He just coached. He just, it was like moving pieces around a chessboard to Bill. Now, he had great teams almost all the time with the Patriots, so he might not be used to this, but he is almost treating this like he was treating an NFL team. Do you think he's got to learn that there's a big difference between these 2 levels of football in terms of how you deal with players?
Absolutely. I think there's a dramatic difference between the NFL and college football. And look, I'm not speaking from experience. I was in the NFL there, but I got cut. I got cut, 5, 6 times. So I think there's just a different approach when you're a college football coach. And Adam, I'll be honest with you, I saw a difference in sidelines. Dabo was meeting guys with the numbers and having conversations about mistakes, penalties, assignments. And I think he does a phenomenal job of teaching the game during the game. And it was, we were in the box and I was looking at Jones and sideline interaction was night and day. And I think it's just a different approach, right? Like, so, you look at this Nick Saban and he was very active on game day as far as coaching. I think one of the most, active coaches is also Kirby Smart. Dan Lanning, those guys that are top 5, top 10 teams, they're coaching nonstop on Saturdays. And I think you look at the Sunday approach, and that is more of, hey, it's your job. It's you're getting paid to do this. And I understand the college kids are getting paid, but it takes a little bit more explanation. And I just remember we didn't have the iPads when I was playing. And that verbal communication with player to coach and player to player interaction is very vital to make changes that are in game. Because if you think about it, Adam, they're going to bring something that they didn't show on film, and vice versa. And you have to have that verbal communication to be able to communicate. And I always remember John Shoup, who's the offensive coordinator, told me, I'll know how well you're seeing the game by how well we're communicating over the headset after coverages. and after each play, because he wanted to see what I was seeing during the game. Because if you can look at an iPad, and it's really easy to look at an iPad, Adam. I mean, everyone can look at an iPad and go, oh, I just didn't see it. But you got to make a decision in 0.3 seconds.
Right.
So that kid might be able to tell you, oh, yeah, now I see it's cover 3, but he doesn't. His eyes aren't in the right place, and you have to have that verbal communication to make corrections. And so, I think, and I think that's just a learning period for everybody, players and coaches. And I'm not just singling out coaches and players. I think it's just more of how can we get it fixed? And I know that there's a plan in place to get it fixed. And I think everyone wants to just see it in action. And I think that's the most frustrating thing right now.
Bryn Renner is joining us here in the Adam Gold Show. They're not going to be a more talented team on the schedule beyond Clemson. So maybe as the talent gap narrows as the season goes on, maybe we'll see something more out of them. Can you identify players on either side of the ball that you believe are really good enough right now to compete at this level? Or, I mean, that might be a disrespectful question. I apologize for asking, just in general, putting it out there in the ether, not necessarily disrespectful to you. But are there players that you go, all right, this guy can compete at this level? The other players, we're still trying to figure it out.
Sure. I think there's guys that are playing really, really hard. And I don't want to discredit the effort from each individual. I think it's more of a holistic type of situation. And I think everyone on the roster can play. I think it's just finding their role. And I think this is a huge audition for these guys for next year. And I say this all the time. The biggest pressure is peer pressure. And you're putting on film the type of effort that you want to put on tape. And I think guys like, Andrew Simpson, who's having a really, really good year and making plays and leading the team in tackles, he's playing extremely at a high level. I think Thaddeus Dixon, the corner, besides getting beat on the first play, which is a tough play when you have bubble into the field and you're the corner, you're triggering on a stock block and it's a double move. That's tough. It happens. And I think, I liked the way Max Johnson responded too. I thought he took some shots in the pocket. I thought he really kind of, without scoring the ball and having the production, he stood in there and fought. And I think, you look at Devon June, the running back, who's a true freshman from Jacksonville, North Carolina. You can tell that interlocking NC means something to him when he runs. He was the last guy we took in the recruiting class. Mm-hmm. And those guys play with effort and intensity. That's different, and you need it across the board. And Adam, the one thing I was thinking about over the weekend is we had closed door player meetings where the coach was irrelevant, and we took it upon ourselves to make plays. And I remember we lost 2 games when Larry first got here, and it was 2012. And I remember Kevin Reddick and Sylvester Williams, myself, and other guys had a closed door meeting, and players eventually have to make plays for you to be successful, obviously. And there needs to be some accountability in that locker room as well to say, hey, look, we're not going to stand for this. We understand the outside noise, and this stops right now. And we took that upon ourselves in 2012, and we ended up winning 6 straight games and going 8-4. And I think that's an approach that you can have when all this noise is starting to distract you.
Bryn Renner is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show now, analyst on the Tarheel Radio Network. From Bill himself, they turning over 70 players on the roster from the end of last season to the beginning of this one. That obviously comes with its own risks, and who knows how many of these players are better than the players that they ultimately replaced. But you mentioned that players are your best recruiters earlier. There's a number of really good recruits that have committed to North Carolina, at least verbally. How critical is showing something now on the field to keeping those guys in your recruiting class coming in?
Yeah, I think it can go 2 ways. I think you can spin it as, okay, the product on the field is not where it needs to be, and you can come make a change. And I think there's the other way is, hey, we're trying to build something, but you also have to see that the improvement is coming. So I think it's going to be, look, it's a everyday process in the recruiting space. There's people trying to talk to you that are at different schools and using leverage that UNC is not where it needs to be, and you need to come here. So there's a lot of tampering going on across the landscapes. But if you have kids that actually believe it, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but it was kind of very similar when Butch went 4 wins, 6 wins, 8 wins, and then we all started getting recruited and started getting better. There was improvement. There was gradual improvement of the team was getting more talent. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can harp on with recruits is, hey, look, we're riding this ship. We're trying to get better, but it's also very hard. I think it's hard to keep guys committed. I think it's hard to keep a class intact, and you got to have leaders. There has to be leaders within that 2026 class that are talking and having group chats and having communication with the coaches that know what's going on and what they're trying to build. Because at the end of the day, the staff just got here, so they're trying to build something. So, and it takes time, as you know, but I think everyone's patience gets thin with the transfer portal and things like that. So, one day at a time, Adam, in this college football space.
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right. By the way, there's a week off before. I said earlier, I thought Virginia. Virginia's the next game. At Cal is the game. And I just watched Cal Duke. Cal's got a great young quarterback. Duke put it on him, though, after falling behind 21-7. I think the Blue Devils are really good. Final thing, though, because this is what I keep hearing or reading. Bill Belichick's in over his head when it comes to the college game. I mean, I think it's fair to say that maybe he underestimated how what the job entailed coming in. He came in with, we're going to 33rd NFL team. I never thought that meant that they were going to be so good, only that the program was designed to be a feeder to the NFL. But do you think he underestimated maybe? Because they're saying over his head. I can't imagine that that's actually true. But did he underestimate maybe the difference between the pro and the college game?
I think that's a tough question because it's the season's still ongoing. But I did see an interview with College Game Day came or not came, but he did Pat McAfee,
right.
Desmond Howard, and Coach Saban. He was doing the interview on the field before the game, and the same question was approached, and I think he answered it with they've had 4,000 kids on campus just in the month of June alone, and camps, and really the thing that stood out to me, Adam, was you mentioned we haven't even had a full recruiting class.
Right.
And I think that's fair. I think it's very fair. He just got here in early December, and really just kind of has had the college football crash course. And so, with that being said, you kind of got a little picture into how his mind was thinking. That look, it hasn't even been a full year, so let's all kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And I think that's also fair too. I think there's a learning process, there's a growth process. So I think he's learning about the college game. He's learning about how to coach college players full time. And I'll tell you this, from NFL to college, you spend a lot of time by yourself watching film in the NFL. And in college, you spend a lot of time with your coach watching film. And I think that's the difference is, hey, you're done at 6 o'clock to go have a family in the NFL, and you're watching film on your iPad from the house. Mm-hmm. And in college, I was watching film till 9 o'clock at night and going to study hall. And then just you're grinding. It's literally like just college is constant. You're with your coach. You're with your coach. You're with your coach. And the NFL is you're by yourself because you can get cut, and the coach sometimes can't get cut. So there's a different approach to coaching a college team and coaching an NFL team for sure. So I think it's a gradual process, and I'm hoping, I know hopefully we'll see the progress being made in the last, 2/3 of the season.
You went to study hall?
Adam, come on! My diploma hangs the same height as everybody else's. That's my answer. I will plead the fifth.
You are the best, my man. I appreciate your time. You do a great job. I enjoyed listening to you, even though I could feel your pain. I was trying to channel inner good vibes to kind of help you out, but you're awesome, Bryn. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate you. I'm looking forward to hockey season, though.
That's right. We got to get you out to a game and wind the siren. If you need me to broker a contact, I will.
You're the man. Thanks, Adam.
All right, man. Bryn Renner here on the Adam Gold Show.
We talked about hockey season beforehand because both of our fantasy football teams are not doing well.
Oh, no, I didn't know. I don't have a fantasy football team. My son does. He needs 26 points from his kicker tonight. He's got Harrison Butker.
Oh,
I'm like,
well,
probably not. 26 points from a kicker ain't going to happen.